Okay, because it was muted. That's fairly simple. Yeah, muted in OBS. Don't know why I was muted in OBS, but I was. Are we good? People and we're good. Cool. Okay. I am not hearing. Okay. Um, so I'm gonna do a quick run back through for YouTube. One, Perksy currently unavailable for the project for an indeterminate amount of time. So it's just going to be me and Exanite kind of taking a lead charge here. We are most of the way done through preview 1, just waiting on input getting done, which I say that like input isn't kind of a monster to tackle. Aside from that, we've got Vulkan done. I'm going to be spinning back up on Windows, and math is getting work done. But we do also have a whole bunch of other bindings that need to be looked at. The top priority, if we're looking at kind of the stuff for preview 2, which depending on when input hits, I think we might just be jumping to preview 2, because we are kind of, at least most of that is in flight, with me working on Windows. The only thing that we wouldn't have, I think, right now is windowing implemented for Android. I'm not entirely sure what we mean by Silk Touch has more overloads implemented. As for right now, I think we're generating overloads for everything. Yeah, I think that's what I think this was back when we weren't sure if we were going to be generating all the overloads to begin with. And generic maths is being worked on. OpenXR would be the only other thing that needs to be looked into. So yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, okay. Yeah. Which, if we need for testing purposes, I do also have. I have an index. So, um, and it might be worth talking to Bailey to see if she has any free time, because I think she also has done some OpenXR. Also, I am not apparently. Discord is muted. That is what I have just gotten. Desktop audio. Okay, because this, unless is this using the wrong? No, it's not. Okay, let me check. What's going on? I'm doing it live, everybody. Why? Okay, that they're not hearing Discord? Like you guys. Let me check. Because Discord should be. Discord. I have. If people can talk for a minute while I pay attention to. Has Discord decided that it hates me? Possibly. It is.
On OBS and
There we
try to create a new
go.
audio. We in?
Yeah, you should be in. Let me YouTube, let me know. But that should be
check.
Discord decided to use a different audio device that I can hear perfectly fine, but nobody else could.
Mic check.
I'm
just gonna pull up the video.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. I heard my mic check.
Cool. That's great. Okay. Discord deciding to change audio devices is not helpful, but yeah. So Exanite, you're gonna look at a lot of the Chronos, but Dom, you might be helping with OpenXR, and depending on testing goes, the more people we can have with headsets that are willing to look at stuff, obviously, probably going to be good. But that'll probably also fall out a lot with once we get actual preview out. We'll be able to also get a lot more hands-on with people who have different stuff. I am going to need to do a very quick Google because I do not actually know what OpenCL is off the top of my head.
A compute library.
Okay.
Pre-Vulkan.
Yeah. Okay. That's another Chronos one. I don't remember if our async previously was handwritten or not, but async is like model loading and a few things like that.
Yeah.
Honestly, it'll probably be once we get to that point, it might just be looking at how hard is it to just get running, because at that point I would hope that a lot of our stuff is already running. I think the other big one that I'm worried about, which honestly I'm not sure, because our support for web GPU is the one that I'm like, I don't know. Honestly, it's scary.
I don't know.
And our web GPU support isn't super great to begin with already. And I'd like to give it the time. Because I think we only support using it. Like you can't actually like use it in browser because some problems with nscripting. But
don't believe so.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I was personally considering for my own stuff that might be kind of worth just waiting on is the fact that it seems like SDL GPU is interested in supporting web GPU. And the fact that web GPU right now is so kind of, I'll say half-baked. It's not. The API is like stabilized, but browser support's half-baked, device support. We might be better off exposing SDL GPU in the meantime, knowing that it will come with web GPU support come like 3.6 or whatever, 3.7, I don't know. If we're just interested in getting this out the door and web GPU turns out to be a pain.
Okay. Real fast, just responding to a chat comment. Boost my audio as in everybody or just me specifically? I don't.
Yeah, you might want to throw a.
Yeah, I can.
Just a compressor filter or something.
Yeah, just a gain filter, probably good enough. All right. Can I just get an opinion now, and I will play with it as people see fit? But I bumped it up a little bit. I don't want to blow anyone's eardrums out.
It sounded 1-to-1, but between Discord and YouTube for what it's worth for me.
Okay. I'm just gonna wait for Maisie to reply. See if that was good or if I need to bump up a little bit more.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
My name is literally
All right. Yeah, unfortunately, your name gets a little cut off by.
What are you gonna do? It's what I
yeah.
chose.
Yeah, that honestly, that's fine. I think also because we have all of SDL already. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think SDL GPU does exist.
Yeah,
The bindings.
I think that might already be in the bindings. So if that's the case,
I assume it is.
then
Yeah, if
honestly,
it's part of the same headers, then it should be there.
yeah, I think eventually wrapping back around and providing our own support, because technically SDL GPU supports a lot of things that we are also supporting separately.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think.
Do you mind control scroll zooming a little bit? The text is a little bit unreadable on Discord. That's a lot better.
Beautiful.
You're welcome. Yeah, so I don't know if that's something that I think we want to wait for release for. That might be something that comes back a little later.
Also, another thing, previews. I feel like we should be in the preview phase for a decent while. I'm not too rushed about needing to release.
Yeah.
Soon.
Well, the reason I'm concerned about it is there is already a lot of people asking, and our support for 2.0 isn't great right now because a lot of it is, do you wait for 3.0? Do you continue 2.0? Like, the general response we give to people is use 2.0 for now. And I'm not saying that we won't be in preview for a little bit. I just don't know if WebGPU is something to wait on.
Technically, I don't really see the difference between preview and release other than the fact that we can't do break changes.
That's really it. Is there any breaking changes that we want to make?
Because the reason I want to stay in preview for a decent while is I want to make sure everything's good before release.
Yeah.
But of course, if we do verify that everything's good, have enough people using it, then we can fast track it.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, is the main difference between preview and release is essentially us saying this is now production ready. Which means don't want to do too early without, I think at very least there should be enough preview cycles that we do a few rounds of bug fixing and community feedback. I don't just want to go, we did one preview out the door, because I feel like that probably won't get us off to a good start with 3. So yeah, I'm just at this point trying to figure out where everything's sitting at, which I do want to go through where everybody's sitting at with the stuff they are working on. Is Spurv also Chronos? Spurv Reflect and Spurv Cross?
I think so.
Consider it. I'm doing that as well. And I think we have one that I'd want. It's not listed here. I don't remember what JPI it is.
No. Let me just.
Oh, there's an open issue for it.
Is there an open issue for it?
Oh, Spurv Tools.
Oh, Spurv Tools. Okay.
Yeah. And I'll include that in there as well.
Yeah.
Probably similar enough. Hopefully with like generator complete, I can just do all of the Chronos APIs bulk.
Yeah, like I know for both Chronos and the Windows stuff, the first few are going to be the hardest because that's us setting up the things that we need to get everything running correctly. Windows has got a bunch because I've got to handle all the comm stuff. Okay, that's a decent kind of just at least where most things are going to be sitting at and who they're going to be sitting with. We'll cross the bridge of async when we get there. And shader C is their shader compiler, isn't it?
I think
Yeah,
so.
I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
It would be cool to get slang in here too, but maybe it's too early for that.
I mean, it would be like kind of like Microsoft Find English because it's the COM API.
Yeah. Which anything that comes out of the Windows SDK is coming in. We're getting all of DirectX. We are also doing the Agility SDK and the DirectX shader compiler. So honestly, adding Slang into is not that much of a lift once we get
not
most of that going.
Okay, sick.
I will leave that as I because it's
as
not something
open-ended as possible.
Yeah, that's open-ended. I don't see why it should be a lot harder to add that.
I wouldn't add that to our 3.0 target.
Honestly, that like a lot of this stuff down here will probably land on like a 3.1 patch or something of that nature. Mainly the goal for 3.0 is to get parity with 2.x, the version we're on currently. With the exception of, I know the Windows SDK is being beefed up a lot because we're taking the entire Windows SDK, not just DirectX as we had previously.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah. Which I guess I will start off with stuff that I'm going to be working on. Aside from the slight generator improvements, which is pulling some stuff that I had done previously for some of the comm stuff that was some core generator stuff, adding some timers and some performance, just tracking stuff, is going to get pulled down into main. And then there was a change that I made that would make it show a sort of loading bar. For a lot of bindings, this really will not matter. It's mostly for our larger bindings because I was sitting watching nothing happen on the screen for a very long time and it got very tedious. And it's nice to know how close to completion that stuff's going to come in. But then I will start back on the Windows. Just with all the changes that Xanite's made, I'm clearing off, starting fresh, because there's a lot of stuff that will be better now because we have better naming, and naming was a huge pain with the Windows stuff because there's a lot of stuff that we need to rename. And I know one of the other big things that I'm going to need to do, which will probably lean into some of how the naming stuff works, is we need to change all the namespaces because we want them separated out into their individual namespaces because currently we are generating them all in a very kind of core namespace, just kind of silk.net.windows, which that's not great. I think technically it's broken off into DirectX, WinRT, and GDI are the three sub namespaces, but we back a while ago, Perksy and I decided that we wanted to, be able to put DirectX 11 separated out and DXGI, those sorts of things. So we're gonna set kind of namespaces, and I think doing that first might honestly be better. I was doing it previously, and there was a lot of stuff that was causing problems, and I also need to fix which again will probably be easier early, how we're pulling GUIDs, because a lot of the Windows stuff relies on a GUID to tell what type of object you're pulling, so we have to have those set up, and they do get generated with the object, but they get generated in their own files because they were kept separately, and we wanted to pull those into all of the types, and that's just another time-consuming task that probably should have gotten done first, because stripping those out and then placing them in the individual types when they're still in their original form is going to be easier. So yeah, basically I'm starting from scratch there, but my plan is to, in the next month, be getting into that. So just kind of going down the list. Exanite, you've been all over the place with Vulkan. I know you're currently doing some stuff, fixing up some SDL issues.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you sitting at?
So, the next step for me is fixing up some of the. I think just finishing up some of the features for Vulkan, and it will also affect the other APIs, because I think Vulkan, the structs currently, they use Int or something for booleans, like the functions, and that's handled separately. So functions have the booleans transformed, structs do not, and I want to fix that. And then there's the other just usability things I want to make sure is good on the mining side of things. It's mostly just polish at this point. I also want to just make sure the generator code quality is decent, because there's a few multi-threading issues and if I want to fix.
Yeah.
That shouldn't take too long. Right after that, I'll probably start working on the different Chronos APIs. And then I'll have to look into the native builds, because it's also required.
Okay. Yeah.
And that might take a bit, because
I think we
go ahead.
can still get in touch with Perks if you need to ask questions on that. Unfortunately, I've mentioned, I'm not super up on the native APIs, because that is irrelevant to the Microsoft bindings, because they only run on one platform, and we just
that's
you can
the nice part about the Windows bindings.
Yeah, it's the only nice thing, really, but
true. But the hardest part about the native builds is that I have to somehow test it on every single platform, or just hope it works.
Honestly,
I don't have access to Mac, but Mac is decent, decently accessible, because I can ask people here.
Yeah.
The ARM or Mac Intel might be more annoying, and the Windows ARM, Linux ARM, I have to figure out how to access to those.
Yeah. Honestly, probably our first pass, just kind of hoping it works, is probably fine. If we get it into preview iOS, and someone's Android, hey, it doesn't work, we can then start approaching, okay, this one doesn't work, why doesn't it work? If you don't have access to it,
Android, could be a nice test for native only targets. It's kind of easier to deploy. I'd be happy to help there too, because Android's been a pain, and it's key to my use case at least. So
Okay.
I'd be down to test those sorts of builds.
Thank you. The good thing is, like, I do have some experience in making stuff, since I've been using it for my personal projects.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have like super extensive experience with it.
Okay.
Yeah, there's just the whole multi-targeting thing with .NET isn't something I have a ton of experience with, but I have mild experience with the whole build pipeline and the dependency resolution scheme and whatnot. I don't think I'd be particularly useful in most troubleshooting scenarios, but at the very least, reproduction and whatnot. You know, I
Okay.
feel for you. That you got a tough bunch of tasks on your plate.
I'm hoping to like spend a month or so on this, because I can probably copy the setup from my other project and just have it work here. Just with like more platforms that Silk supports and my personal project doesn't. It's only difference.
True.
All right. That's where you're going to be at. Hey, Dom, how's it in input land?
Input land is fun. Let me actually. Do you mind if I share my screen? Does that work?
Yeah, I
I
can
just could.
get your. I just have to move Discord over here, and I can, if you want to share, I can just pull you up full screen.
I just wanted to share one window, and Discord actually
that's
is not
not
happy with me. So here's what I'm gonna do. 1 second, more OBS shenanigans. OBS is gonna be my webcam. We don't need audio. That's my desktop number 1. And all right, let me just start the virtual camera. My desktop should be in view. My camera, I'm gonna turn it on.
Okay.
All right, my webcam is camming. All right, so I just figured a visual would be useful because input land gets pretty abstract, but basically, like, I've just been making ways of me seeing what's going on recently, because like the base, like all the code was there, but I basically coded blind for on and off for a year, just kind of, or whatever it was, I don't know, just to make sure everything's going. So now I'm kind of going through each device type and making sure it's acting as expected and comparing that to against the assumptions I'm making by like feeding it into ImGUI and then comparing that, like here's the ImGUI version of it where I just list out all the ImGUI keys and whatnot. But so that's where I'm at. The mouse seems to be behaving. The keyboard seems to be behaving. Text entry, not so much. But I'm gonna get that. And then next up is gamepads, which I'm starting. I literally just started to try to debug today. But yeah, we have progress for sure. I'm more in the position of if anything's gonna mess up in a in Silk, I'd really prefer it not to be input. I would like that to just be kind of settled. So yeah, I'm just kind of in the make sure everything's good and also ergonomic. There are some things that I've been shifting around in the non-official API to make things a little bit easier to work with. Stuff like that. Just trying to make it really nice. It's something we could forget about.
Yeah. That sounds good.
That's it.
And it sounds like you'll also be helping Exanite periodically on and off with stuff. So Uttercon, how's it going in math?
Well, yeah, I haven't been touching it much since February. There's some edits that I've made to the okay, well, I grabbed the spec and slapped that in like as status and put check boxes next to everything. But there's a few things I had to cross out. Basically, things that I kind of wanted to chat about in this call. So in a lot of the cases, there's I can send you the link to the PR.
Yeah, send me a link because I need to.
Just probably easier.
All right.
That's the draft PR right now.
1 second. Discord has. Right, there we go.
I threw it in the.
In meeting. It just didn't want to come up. Okay.
Okay. Let's start at the very, very bottom because I think the most interesting thing right now is the most recent screenshot there. Even further.
Even further. Okay. All the way down.
There you go.
Yep.
So this screenshot shows basically the current working state and API right now. So we can create vectors with basically we're able to achieve everything we wanted. We can use extension properties that only show up if you have the right API. Same thing with static methods that only show up with the right API. We're able to build vectors of any type that implements the right type of number. So like you can see there, you have complex types as a vector. We can tuple and untuple them, and everything works pretty beautifully. So that's in a good state. If we wanted to preview this, I wouldn't be so upset actually. But there's changes that we plan, and we might not want people to build upon it. So if you scroll up to the sections where there's missing checkboxes.
Okay.
Most of these, so there was this stuff here. This is like for the various helper types. Those already exist, and I got it like building, and all the tests run. So basically, if what we wanted to do is port the old API, that's more or less working. But I need to go through this with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that it matches the spec exactly still. I don't want to rewrite all the code that's basically working. I did update the the generic constraints and everything like that so that it builds. But yeah, it's basically working. There was some confusion there around what's the difference between a box and a rectangle, and somebody said it was like centered versus center origin versus corner origin. I'm not sure why we want two types for that. But I'm not really.
Different APIs require different things.
Yes.
And that's.
But why store them?
This is where I'm gonna make the statement that I've gone back and forth with a lot of people about this, which is why I kind of stepped away from math. Personally, I don't understand why we wouldn't just go with min and max. You get a lot of use out of min and max rather than center and extents. But there are use cases for both of them.
And we can provide a copy constructor that gives you a span or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's like I don't know why we. Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I'm not really here to second guess that. Those types still exist, and whatever. Whether I go through the effort of doing that for both, it really feels redundant. But I'll do it. So those are basically working with the existing code from previous from the previous implementation, just with the new generic implementations. So if we scroll up a little further, we have some things. Yeah. So here's where we have some crossed out stuff a little further down. Sorry.
A little further down. Yeah.
Right here. So we decided that we didn't want to have infix operators, but for the quaternion, we still have it listed as infix for a lot of these. Like basically an instance dot method here, and an instance concatenate method, and an instance conjugate method that take a second of the type. And I only implemented the static versions because and I went back and watched the last video. We basically decided that if we wanted to add infix operators, we could add it later.
Yeah.
And so I crossed it out here, but I felt like it was necessary to have another actual explicit chat about this before I change the spec. I think these need to be removed from quaternion as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm good with that, unless someone here isn't, because we did have that discussion and I remember it, and it shouldn't be, we shouldn't have infix operators on just one type. If we're going to do infix, let's do them across the board.
I'm also team consistency.
Yeah.
So for now, leaving them out, but we can add them later. I think that's completely valid, and that's what I've done so far. I don't know what the state of that as span function is. I think I just haven't implemented it yet. So that's not relevant. Okay, all of these matrix operators, I just need to go through them one by one and make sure that the existing implementation is valid. Again, everything compiles. So if these pre-existed, they exist. Now, there's a lot of these here where we need to create a second version of it, one for left hand, one for right hand. And I haven't really gotten my head around the algebra of changing those. But I'd say that's probably the most work right now, is creating the second handed version of most of these functions.
Okay.
There's a couple other spots here where I needed to make changes from the spec. So explicit conversion to system numerics type. I think in the screenshot below, there's two explicit ways to convert to the system numerics. There's a cast, and then there's the .to numerics function. I don't think implicit makes a ton of sense because we support we support data types where
it doesn't match
that
the
conversion
numerics.
could be lossy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the philosophy of C# conversions is that explicit conversions are used when data may be lost. Or if data may be lost, it's always an explicit conversion. So I think it makes sense to deviate here and keep this explicit.
I think the explicit is fine. I'm wondering though if, for the sake of usability for some, if it's worth potentially creating generically constrained implicit operations where data loss isn't possible. I don't know, if that's ergonomically feasible or not. I haven't seen the code, but it's
I
food
think
for
we
thought.
run into the number of overloads allowed issues there.
No,
right, because you can't differentiate by the.
You could.
Only
you'd have to
the
do as
generic
an
constraints.
extension, I think. You do
An extension.
You could do it
implicit conversion.
Can you do explicit?
It would be like
extensions?
I'm not sure the interfaces that the .NET numerics vectors implement, but they're vectors and they're going to have a generic interface that defines the fact that they're working with floats. I feel like I could be wrong. Maybe that doesn't exist, but I will check right now actually. But
trying to remember if you can do that.
Vector 2.
Yeah, so it would be float.
Yeah.
That's the only one that's like.
Yeah.
I guess float
literally.
and short, I guess, would be short, and anything smaller could be implicit, but
I
don't think
feel
it's not a hill I'm willing to die on. Just speaking for people I have worked with where that might be kind of like a ergonomic hang up.
Yeah, so if you look at the API down below, I think it's really ergonomic. The screenshot that we first looked at, it's not.
I think it is. Yeah, I think it's very ergonomic. It's just it's a brain shift a bit, compared to working with numerics, and I think that's fine. I think it's a small burden.
Yeah, and the thing is like, honestly, you're gonna have to be slightly aware of it already, and because you aren't working with the numerics version, and there are gonna be some things that you like. I think it's better to be aware of which type you're working with and not accidentally go, I assigned this to my non-numerics version and didn't realize, where it's explicit that you're converting between the two. I don't think that that's a problem, personally. Just being explicit about it,
yeah, I think that's fair.
And if we choose otherwise, we can always go back and add implicits later.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's that.
I think did I scroll too far?
I want to make sure we get through anything else that I have annotated here, but then there's one other thing.
There's the implicit. Okay. Informative. Bitwise not.
Yes. Okay. So here's another thing. So those the names there, those do not match the iBitwise operator interface.
Okay.
So I changed them.
That's fine with
I
me.
think that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, iBitwise operators uses bitwise and bitwise or, exclusive or, and one's complement.
Yeah. If we're
Okay.
matching the interface, I think that's 100% correct thing to do.
Okay. And then that's probably it from the textual changes we have to make here. As that's just not implemented.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, great. So the last thing is the existing API has a particular way of taking smaller sized matrices in constructors and then reassigning the coefficients into different spots in the matrix. And I'm sure it makes sense to somebody who's more steeped in this, but it does not it doesn't make like obvious sense to me, right? And I'm concerned that as the basic constructor for a matrix is quite confusing, and the spec doesn't actually make any opinions on this known. I think it just says should have constructors that take the smaller sizes. If you could look for that.
Yeah, it'll be down in the matrix portion.
I mean, matrices of smaller sizes for transformation matrices feels a little redundant.
I'm assuming that's what's going on here. There is a reason why you do it. I don't see it here in the spec.
I don't see it here either.
Yeah.
So
I remember the
maybe
discussion
I didn't fully copy everything over
about it
in Discord. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there is reason, and it's actually something I was actually just recently doing. Where you're taking a lower dimension affine transformation and raising it to a higher power. Really, the only ones is taking your 3x2 matrix and going to 3x4 or 4x4. The reason
But
that
doesn't that like assume a specific alignment of the basis vectors or something? Like, couldn't you do that in any, like on any face of a cube or whatever we're doing?
So if you're doing, at least in the case that I was talking about, where I was doing this, I was literally taking, and because I was doing some rotation and I was ignoring Z, and in my case I was always treating Z as a separate axis. Knew it was there, but it was depth value that I wasn't using. You can reasonably assign the location of the, because you have an XY rotation and scale there, and then you have XY translation, and you could put that there. I think if we're gonna do that, though, I don't think it should be a constructor. I think it should
have a name, right?
Yeah.
Like it
should be create from 2D affine transformation.
Absolutely.
Takes matrix
in particular, it should be create from 2D affine XY or whatever axes you're leaving.
Yeah, and if you want to do that,
project it onto the XZ or whatever,
or YZ, and if you want to do that, that's perfectly fine.
100%.
If you were gonna just do one, though, I would say treat it as XY and go from there. But obviously, depends on how people want to.
If we want that function, I think we should add that function as something we want to the spec. And I think the constructors should do the basic linear algebra thing of just continuing to make the matrix bigger or whatever.
I 100% agree. That's my vote on it. Is I think those should be separate because I think you are right for someone who is not steeped in the reason why, which we will have people not steeped in the reason why. They will think that they are just making it bigger, and then it won't. It'll do something weird and move stuff around, and then we'll get questions about why is it doing this. And for someone who goes, hey, I expected it to do that, we can go, hey, there's a function for that. Honestly, though, for matrices, going from larger to smaller, personal opinion, I don't know how often that's even something you're going to do outside of, taking a 3x4 and making it a 4x4, or taking a 2x3 and making it a 3x3, because there is some math that works better when they're square, but that I think that's an open question for everybody, is how often do you need to expand a matrix that exists?
I think that's pretty niche personally. I tend to just use 4x4 just all the way down. I don't do a ton of 2D for what it's worth. And there are definitely like graphics pipelines, for example, that are going to want to make heavy use of make these matrices as compact as possible. But I think that's fairly niche.
And again, I think the case there is you're going to be using a 2D. Or if you want the 3D, we have this one conversion that is explicitly a function that'll take you up to the 3D.
So
fine.
Reading between the lines, are we saying we might not even want the constructors that change sizes?
Yeah, because I just don't see a use case for them right now. And there's something, if we find out in the future that someone hands us a use case for them, we can add them back in, but I don't know if it's worth the time unless they're already there.
We can add them in super easy. I'm doing all this with a code generator, so and I intend to check that in.
Like if they're already there, I don't see a reason to remove them, but if you haven't done them, I don't see a reason to put them in.
Like I said, I've done and undone them. It's like a for loop. It's so easy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I
personally,
I don't care.
Yeah, I respect your gut on whatever you want to do here, because it's not likely something I'll be using.
What I would like to do
term.
is put them. I would just delete them for now and put them in when somebody asks for them, and then I can actually understand what the real use case is.
That I'm
makes sense.
Completely good. The only thing that I would like is I'd like that function to do the conversion from 2D to 3D. If you want to do it backwards, I don't know a reason why you'd need to do it backwards, but I know.
I don't think we had the requirement to do anything backwards. I think it was always from lower dimensional matrices to higher. So
2D to 3D, I have a use case directly for that.
Okay,
3D to 2D, I could see the use. Like, I will be using that use case eventually, but like, I don't know. At the point where you're doing that, you could just build an extension method or ask for, I don't think it's a thing. I don't think it matters so much.
Okay, I'll send a PR to the spec that where I propose a solution, and you can let me know if that matches the use case you're thinking.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I think that's it for math.
Okay, cool. I think this has covered most of what I cared about, which was getting us all in a room going, okay, we're the guys working on 3.0. What's going on? Because we've all been doing this disparately over the last year. I'm trying to get back into it and get my wheels back turning, because I know I've just recently hit a point where I needed something that 3.0 would have given me, and I had to hack it into 2.0. Because for some reason we never brought over the direct input library at all. I guess it's because of the assumption that people use the built-in input HLUs, but I don't rely a lot on the HLUs. Personal thing. So yeah, that's like I kind of want to get the ball moving and us hopefully getting along at least to a preview getting out there. Like we have an experimental out there, but that's heavily just an experimental. Most people we suggest not using really at all. It sounds like input's on its way. What do you still have to do for input still? Aside from gamepads.
It's a lot of it's just a lot of verification, you know. I basically coded without running anything for a long time. Now I'm running things. That's awesome. And that's where I find the kinks, like as
Okay.
low level as, the way I'm indexing basically all input arrays is busted. Let me fix that real quick. I did that, and then also just to like, oh, the name for this isn't being correctly populated or what, you know, like now I'm realizing what the code is actually doing. So I'm just kind of patching,
Patching as you
refactoring
go.
where strictly necessary, and
Okay.
just trying to get it to a point where I can't find anything wrong with it and everything that I expect to work works. And then after that, my thoughts are get this in the hands of whether it's like a preview or it's just like in the repo and one of y'all pulls it down or something and like messes around. I want to make sure that it's not just meeting my expectations on the inside. I want to make sure that it makes sense to everybody. It's meeting everyone's expectations according to the spec and whatnot, because it's very abstract.
Yeah. Just and this is
So
not
like for
holding
me,
you to anything. Do you know how much longer you think it's going to take to go through your verification?
it could take, kind of, it could take forever or it could take very little. Not because I think it's so fucked that it'll take forever, excuse my French, but that I can probably spin my wheels on it for longer than is necessary. So if you have like, oh, I want to be able to play with this soon, like I can, if I were to look at the calendar, it's April 19th. I would imagine by June, like most use cases will be like solid as far as I can see, observe, and care for. Things like pen support and whatnot might not be there in the way that we would want at that stage, but that's fairly niche. Uh, but I am hoping to get that figured out also by then, because that's important, and then that starts to play into areas of touch and whatnot. That's another thing actually that I'm not really sure how I'm going to test without like natively building to Android, which I don't know
Which
if I can or
isn't
not. I'm gonna have to figure
needed
that out.
for.
Obviously, that has a lot to do with SDL.
Yeah. We don't need that until preview 2 anyways, really. Like obviously there are some touch devices that aren't Android, but um honestly, if we can at least just get kind of the skeleton in sometime around June, I think we could theoretically put a preview 1 out. Like it still won't have Windows. Whether generic math is done or not is probably still going to be up in the air by then. But that at least we can get it out. People can start really playing with this and hammering on it. People can hammer on and give opinions on where generic math's where the input's at. We'll have Vulkan pretty much in. That feels like a good place to be. And then I feel like, especially from a community standpoint, that's obviously if we slip past June, I'm not wanting you to like stress over that, but that gives the hey, 3.0 is coming. It's not the perpetual.
Yeah.
Because that's been the state of 3.0. When I first
It is, yeah.
started working with Silk, it was literally one of the first things, because I was going back and looking at some stuff. And one of my first comments on the server is, I'd love to help maintain the Windows binding, but I'm going to wait for 3.0 to get somewhere that's usable. And that was several years ago at this point. So I'd like us to get to a preview 1, so it's at least like, hey, the ball's rolling. And honestly, it sounds like your test looked good. It looked like, at least for keyboard, we're in a good state, and for mouse we're in a good state. Gamepad and you mentioned something about text input still not working, but that's
Yeah, I think that's, I don't know. I don't know anything about the SDLs, like, because then you're getting into IMEs and whatnot. And then I have my
yeah,
own
that's
little
a whole
implementation for, there's, yeah. Uh, so I'm definitely, that's on my radar too, but I feel pretty good about it. I'm in the same boat as you, man. I kind of ended up joining Silk incidentally. I was working on Tixel. I don't know if y'all know Tixel. It's like a touch designer in C# open source or whatever. And I was like, yeah, it would be really cool to just switch everything. You know, Silk 3's coming out or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, we gotta get our hands dirty here. We gotta
Yeah.
push this out because I think, you know, the state of native in the .NET world has been suffering for some time, and
Yeah.
Silk is the only glimmer on the horizon, and we should probably give people something.
That's pretty much my motivation as well.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of
So
us.
it's-
I was literally when what pushed me to actually move up to full maintenance was when 2.0 broke, because there was a hot minute where we weren't sure if 2.0 was going to be able to be updated anymore because of a break in the toolchain.
Ooh.
That did get fixed, but there was a hot minute where it was like 3.0 or bust. Thankfully, we're not quite in that tizzy, but okay. Anyone has anything else? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Okay.
Yeah.
One last thing.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll go ahead.
Yeah.
With regard to timing on the generic maths, I think I could advance. Not as an excuse, just as an explanation. My last couple of months have been like learning robotics for cosplay. That's taken a lot of time, but it's basically done, and I've blogged about it. So it's like that's also done. Like so, I do have a lot of time now to do this, so I can probably push forward a little bit quicker. Um, so if you wanted to hold me to that, we could try to get it out in preview
In
one
June.
time.
Okay.
Whatever,
again,
yeah.
it's not a necessary for preview one. Honestly, Vulkan already coming is kind of a cool. And the other thing I think for some of the generic mass is we are going to need to see where that needs to like hook into the actual libraries themselves. Also, did you see the conversation we were linked to about the rectangle box conversation that was had a while ago, few years ago now?
Can you say that again?
Perksy linked us to a conversation in team chat. Did you see that about the rectangle box?
I'll go check.
Okay. That is not something, but that's just related to that. It's a whole conversation that happened a while ago about why we have two types for rectangle and boxes. If you read through that and come to the conclusion that that is not the right choice, I know at very least we should support what is currently used in different APIs. And if we have an API, I know DirectX uses min and max. I do not know if Vulkan or any of the others use center and extents. If we do, we should at least have a type that we can drop to. It doesn't have to have all the functionality, but something that we can convert to make it so that we can throw it across simply to DirectX or to Chronos.
I guess maybe what we should do is have an interface that is what we're looking for, and two actual types that have different penalties. But
that's
anyway.
a way to also do that.
That's what
there's been.
It's effectively what we have, but then we just need to have them have the same interface, which I feel like we're missing.
Okay, so like an eye
I've
rectangle.
Had some
I don't know. Yeah.
Or maybe. An eye extents or an eye bounds, eye envelope. I've had some success with that. Obviously that starts to suffer in some circumstances where, just for performance. And so I typically end up trying to skip the interface wherever I can for what it's worth. I'm a min-maxer personally,
Should
but
play chess.
but yeah, it's I'm not sure if an interface is nice, but I also don't know exactly how far the runtime or even the AOT compiler goes in eliding the, dereferences and what have
Yeah.
you with the functions.
Yeah, the boxing is a concern. Because I don't know if everyone is aware of that.
Handling the boxing, I think, is fine with generic constraints, but
Yeah.
that doesn't save a lot of the problems. Like, for me personally, I do a lot of stuff with like R trees, like spatial indexing, shit like that, for like sensor stuff. Maybe I'm a bit niche, but collision systems, physics systems kind of tend to work the same way. And in that scenario, I would just totally ignore any interface that exists for the rectangle or, envelope region, whatever.
I
The
think
data
that's
structure is
fine, but it comes down to a question of like efficient interop between APIs that need one versus the other.
Yes.
Otherwise, we wouldn't have both.
Well,
right?
the thing is you can't, and this is where the problem is. Like for DirectX, you cannot hand it a center and extents. It will not work.
Mm-hmm.
It requires that min-max version because
Absolutely.
that's what's
So the
going to
API would say, what do we call it? I guess box in that case, or no, box is centered.
We'd have to, I think it's the actual rectangle is what we.
Yeah, so we'd have to. So the API that we emit for DirectX would take rectangles, and if you were coding up a box, I think we just need an implicit conversion between the two, and nobody would actually use the API. Maybe that's what we're basically saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sorry, the interface. Nobody would use an interface.
Yeah, and
yeah.
I think the only thing that would be useful for an interface, if we had one over it, is literally just to ensure that interface is a guarantee that everything supported by a rectangle is supported on box. Everything on box is supported by rectangle. That would be my only.
Right.
So by rectangle, in my head, the distinction is 2D, 3D. But that's not what I'm hearing exactly.
So and I think it's box 2D, isn't what it's actually called.
There's like
it's a backing storage.
There was a separate type.
Yeah, it was two separate types. Yeah, box 2 and box 3 is what we called them at the end.
I see. I like that.
So we have a 2D box and a 3D box, and a rectangle and a cube. One being.
Should we call those 2D and 3D and same with array? Because
I think
the
so
rest
now
of our
because
types
we've gone to
D in them.
Yeah.
We've put the D in them, which I don't think originally was the case. Because because we had the separate I and F constraint back.
Yeah, we had I and F, but we don't need that at all as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, so now I would say calling them box 2D, box 3D, Ray 2D, Ray 3D. Again, like, do we need both of them? I don't know.
We should probably find a native library that does.
I don't know
what
any
native
that
library needs the extents.
The center and the extents. I don't know a use case for them. Again, there was a conversation that's linked in. Let me just pull up this conversation, which is okay, I don't remember where the conversation started, so I'm gonna just click here and we're going back.
Okay, I think it's
right here.
It's box 2D and box 3D that are the min and max.
Again,
and then we have cube. We have cube, which is origin and a vector 3 size, so it's not a cube.
Tanner had some good points here.
Tanner's talking about
that, so
and I can't make this any bigger, unfortunately. So Tanner's talking about just using one type And
I can't read that. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I would suggest looking it up in your own
Yes.
Discord. I just need to read through it because I don't remember by this logic. We should not make two types for min-max because who knows if some revolutionary techniques that places origin as more apportionment will arise. Really what we need is stable min-max origin extent and then a box like or something that will do whatever is most performant. In math. Should have rect2d in math.rectangle.
I see where Percy's coming from in this too. Yeah, I guess it depends on like the goal here, because it seems like some of this is just, you know, the library's goals. For me personally, when I'm reaching for, you know, these like box 2D, box 3D, I'm looking for, you know, high performance SIMD vectorization, convenient wrapper for volumes, right? But most people may very well not be doing that, and that's valid too. So I don't know.
So yeah, I think what the gold standard is that we're trying to build performant generic wrappers that are the right shape for whatever API. And arguably, I think our vector is close.
Yeah.
I don't like the name cube. I'm going to
I don't like that.
I don't either. If that's
but
not a
calling
cube,
it rectangular
no,
prism is a mouthful, and no one's gonna want to touch that.
Prism Rect 2 and Rect 3.
Rect 2 and Rect 3 would actually.
There's got to be another like.
I like Rect 2, Rect 3.
And Rect 3D.
Yeah, Rect 2D.
Rect 3 is awesome.
Yeah.
Rect 3, because rectangular just means orthogonal, so we're good. I love that.
I like that as a name better. I agree.
The council has decided.
But
okay.
So the thing is there are, I think the biggest problem with deciding which one is more performant is it does depend on your use case. Collision wise, I think.
Well, it's not even that.
Min and max is.
I think it doesn't. It really depends on what the target API demands.
Yeah.
But you know, another question worth asking too is like, the target API could demand whatever it wants. I'm personally under the assumption that at the time that you're invoking the native API, your work is done. That conversion is basically free because you're doing it once at the call site. Unless you're like really like hot pathing some native APIs, you know, I don't know. I do like the idea of having one mathematical representation and then a conversion for interop, but I'm also pretty naive when it comes to, you know, the frequency with which one would be calling native interop with these sorts of structures.
So with DirectX is just the example I can know off the top of my head. I'm constantly sending the DirectX rectangles across because you use them to define your viewports on your windows. So now most of the time that's set up and forget. But I also have been doing stuff with 2D, so I'm passing rectangles to define certain things in there. And when I'm crossing over into HLSL, I'm preferring the min and max. But that's honestly, I just prefer min and max as the representation that I'm using.
Yeah.
And again, I want to know, because I know there is a use case for center and extents. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. Min and max is collision efficient because you're just testing bounds. And that, if I were to guess,
there's a wild guess.
The only place where I ever used center and extents is like for rendering cubes, where you want to like scale it up with a matrix, but like that's not native interop.
Yeah, well, so some video editing uses centered quads.
Yeah, you know, and center the performance, at least as far as my head is concerned, the performance between scaling a min and max based box and center and extents based box is like night and day, right? Like there's a dramatic difference in terms of like the efficiency you can get with scaling extents versus modifying the bounds. As far as I'm also concerned, though, most use cases, I don't know, the scaling something in that way is not going to be the performance bottleneck.
Well, and depending on how you have your box set up, if you're doing coordinates, if you really want to scale them and you're planning on scaling and then moving, I would then do it via matrix. Because
then min and max is faster.
Min and max is then faster. And again, min and max is most of the time what I would lean towards, and I know that is already what DirectX wants. The thing I care about. I don't know. Does Kronos? And I'm assuming this is
Vulkan uses offset and position and size.
Position and size,
So
and that's
like you could derive min and max from it.
Yeah,
it's a subtract or add operation.
Yeah, so they use
That
the extents, and that's going to be
that's their actual struct representation.
They use the corner. The corner. So it's different from the.
Yeah, it's not center and extent; it's offset and extent. Which
offset.
I could see the use case for that. That's valid to me.
The third thing, actually.
I get it.
I honestly, I would prefer this over center and extent.
Why?
But
I also kind of would too. Man,
you do have 3 options now, though, which is a bit
exactly
insane.
But actually, and we actually have a 4th option, which is to go back to having a single type and just an efficient way to convert into any one of these 3.
Yeah.
Could even have like some like enum and a static extension method.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna send a pull request and I'll try to solve this. I don't think we should derail this right now, but I'll send a PR about the for the spec.
The one thing though that would also have to be for this, and I know it was something I had brought up initially when I discussed this, is we would need to have interrupt types defined still in our math, so that because when you do the Vulkan library is going to need to ask for, if we decide that we only wanted min and max, Vulkan would then have to ask for the right type.
That's where an interface makes a ton of sense, because the interface can have like all the default implementations to get you the other, the other operations, and then you just define. This is the type that looks like this, and then the other ones are defined just by being missing.
So the thing is this is where, what do we want to make harder? The generator working, because then the generator has to do the work to call that function, and that is something that is happening without someone's knowledge.
I'm saying, I think it just needs to say I implement this interface, and the interface can have default interface implementations. Sorry, and just by not implementing the other ones, it gets the slightly less efficient ones for free.
Well, okay, so
isn't that right?
The thing is what I'm talking about,
basically trait based,
is that when I pass into a Vulkan function, a VK-rect, whatever rectangle we have, that currently, as the generator, then just gets tossed into the actual function in Vulkan. We do not transform it in any way, shape, or form. It has to have the same memory layout that it is expecting.
Right, which is why I'm saying, like, when you're dealing with Vulkan, you deal with VK-rects.
Yeah,
and
I'm
it
just like
implements all these other.
Okay. I see what you're getting at.
Okay, so but then do we not have
like
a central rectangle type?
We could have our own one implementation.
I do feel like if you're dealing with VK-Rex, that kind of increases the burden on the Vulkan source generation for the sake of now making that ergonomic, right? Because we're only going to get the data types out of that, and it would be nice if they work as nicely as all of these beautiful math types that we have. And so that sounds like it kind of
if
could
we
make
have
your life harder.
So like I'm thinking of like two different ways of writing the source. One is like you write down like puresilk.net, and like when I say puresilk.net, you're saying I could potentially target other things. And so I'm doing the code just in math here. And so you write it with, instead of var, you use, silk.net types, vector 3D, or sorry, in particular here, box 2, of float or whatever. But then you could just as well have used var and gotten your types from the Vulkan API and never actually, or used VKRec explicitly in your source. And then whatever other silk.net APIs you're using, or any other APIs that need them, will just, do the most efficient thing it can based on the particular type you're using. And as long
Because
as
the VKRect would implement.
Exactly.
I see.
Right.
Yeah. And
and then the only
that's
burden,
a lot of hidden cost.
The only burden that is on the Vulkan bindings is that they put the implements I whatever at the on the struct.
And that shouldn't be done in the generator. I would just do that as a manual source. Wow.
Yeah, that wouldn't be that hard.
Yeah,
I'm just
a partial, yeah.
So the only thing that becomes the question for that, and this is where is we have VK has one of those. Say somewhere down the line someone else implements another one that is the same as the VK rect, but isn't a Chronos binding. Not saying that this has happened yet, but do we then duplicate and not have those two things cross? Like, because essentially,
kind of depends on how much code you need to implement that type again.
Well, it's more of if I've got my rectangle that is offset and extends, and I've got the one for Chronos, and then I have one for another API. Do they have two separate rectangles that do essentially the same thing, and then we have two essentially duplicated types? My thing is why not have those duplicate types in the main library as interops?
Predefined.
Yeah. And I'm even to the point where
details,
because the memory layout it might not be exactly what you get when you use a generic type, right? Because I don't think, I think the challenge you get is the packing of structs might be different in one case or another.
Actually, honestly,
so I
even simpler than doing what you're talking, can we instead just have it, and again, this would be an easy manual case to do, and it's up to the person if they want to deal with it differently or not, of we have VKRect, we use VKRect throughout all of the Vulkan stuff, and then on it has an implicit conversion from our rectangle to and from.
So I think that would be the same and even a little harder than just adding the interface that has that as the, because the interface could just say I implicitly can convert to this from any rectangle of the same T.
That's like the center of the graph.
It's just kind of I feel like a little uneasy just with interfaces. Just the only reason being, I mean, I use them heavily. I'm a big interface fan, especially when they're used as traits. But it's one of those places in the runtime where it's you can't really count on performance. You're probably going to get performance, and if you're conscious of that, you will probably get what you want. But especially with AOT and whatnot, that's my only misgiving. And so
you're worried about it getting boxed and then unboxed repeatedly, or what?
Really just with a function pointer redirection, shit like that. I'm not worried about boxing. That's easy to handle with a simple generic constraint. It's just about like, okay, now the runtime has this interface method. There's literally even performance trade-offs between.
I mean, if it's a
Well, I
struct
don't know if
type,
there still are.
if it's a interface on a struct type of a known generic type, and the runtime, I believe, optimizes that because it's known at compile time. Not like with classes where you don't know which method you're calling until you
Yeah.
call it.
Yeah.
I would hope so. If that's the case, then I'm unconcerned if we can count on that.
My big thing of why I don't want to go the interface route is the idea of, if I write some code and I'm working in DirectX and then I want to port that to Vulkan, I don't want to have to change all of my math types to to have that central type that I can use through everything, and then it just converts to what I need when I need it. Yes, it's doing some implicit conversion behind the scenes that I'm not seeing, which I think is
what does the ideal API look like to you? That we have the predefined type for each of these three scenarios, and all of our bindings use them.
Ideal. So I think the ideal is that
as a user, it would be nice to not even think about them.
Not even think about the implementation, but there's that hitch of performance. I want to, in certain cases, when I need the performance, be able to not be concerned about extra steps happening that I don't have control over. But when I don't care about performance, which there's a lot of cases where that's not the case, where performance doesn't matter because it's something I do once, then if it can just do that conversion for me rather than me having to explicitly state it, would be nice. But
so that to me is an argument for having the interface, though, because that means that you can just use whatever type and then it'll convert, or you could be very explicit and only do the conversion in your
as an example, we have the rect type in Silk, the generic math rect type. Then we have dx rect and vk rect. So if we don't have the interface, we can use Silk rect as the center type. So we can implicit cast from, or implicit or explicit cast from dx rect into Silk rect, and then into vk rect. So the use case for that is everyone uses the Silk rect by default, and you just use dx and vk rect for interrupt only. And maybe if they get it from the API somehow, they just cast it back into Silk rect immediately. If we have the interface now becomes a center type, and Silk rect is just a branch of that. So we have the possibility of converting from dx rect into vk rect or Silk rect directly from each of the types. If I'm understanding it right.
Yes. And I think that is achievable.
Okay.
So basically, you can have because the interface becomes sort of like an intermediary language between all of these, you can basically convert directly between one and the other without having to convert into the Silk whatever type first. The other option would be to make sure that the Silk whatever type is the type that we're using to represent all of the various interop, but I think that breaks down very quickly as soon as the memory layouts change even a little bit.
Yeah. I guess I see a world where that works. There is concern about, because we are now holding things via interface. All right, do we get boxed when we don't want to? But honestly, I think I just need to see it and then make my call.
Yeah, the main thing is if users don't realize that there's boxing interfaces.
Which, again, if I can see it. But the thing is those explicit types exist. They just exist within their own, within the DirectX. That's where that one exists, within Vulkan. You could go and be explicit if you really want. So I guess
the nice thing about interfaces is that if a user wants to define their own direct type, they can just do it through the interface, and it'll just work magically for.
So what we want to make sure we discourage, I think, is using the interface type as the type for a variable.
Yeah.
Because then it is boxed. And
you'd only want to use it in function calls and things like that. And again,
really you'd only want to use it as a generic constraint.
Yeah.
You'd want to put of t on your type, and then your type should be your function should be specialized for that type specifically, and then the generic interface the interface default implementations will just be inlined.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Okay.
I think that's going to be something we need to this document explicitly is
or put
interfaces.
What's it called?
Box, and you must use the generic constraint.
Just emit a warning, right?
True. We can use an analyzer for that.
Yeah. Which we need a few analyzers anyways. Get made.
Yeah.
For different
things.
Things.
Basically, if anytime they use it as storage or a unconstrained method parameter, then we just emit a warning.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan.
And honestly, we don't even need to do that for. I guess we do need to.
I guess we don't need honestly.
Special case list, correct?
I'm not even sure we would need a warning, just as an info of, hey, you may be getting boxed here. Be aware.
Yeah, the good thing is that that's a general rule in .NET, not Silk. So
yeah, most people kind of know that.
If you work in the space enough, you'll start to learn that.
If you're in the perf, if you care about perf, you should probably know that.
Yeah. So I guess
and
I'm good with it.
There's a JetBrains extension that does I don't know if it's by JetBrains, but it's
PC applications.
Yep.
Yeah.
I imagine that the source for that it might be just based on .NET Analyzer that we could yoink if we really want.
Oh, I've contributed to the style cop analyzers.
Oh, nice.
I've also written a couple myself.
So yeah, worst case, if that's what ends up being the best way forward, we can just if we feel it's necessary, alert users to that in an unobtrusive way, regardless of their environment or whatever.
I think so. I think it's achievable. Yeah.
All right. Are we done with that?
I think we are.
Okay.
Excellent.
So 2 more bike shedding things. So I changed the naming scheme to match the framework design guidelines in the bindings, right? So it uses the 2-letter acronym threshold. So GL is capitalized, but GLX is capitalized G, lowercase LX. So the same question applies to SDL. So currently SDL is capitalized as a namespace, like streaming case. Then Pascal case as a type. I guess that has to be that way. Because you can't have the namespace and type name be the same. Otherwise you get a lot of collision. Oh, I guess that answers that question.
Well, wait. Would there have been a type that was just called SDL.SDL?
Yes, there is. It is.
There is.
Every individual binding gets a type that is named after the binding, which is where all of the global C stuff ends up. The global functions and that.
Okay, well then isn't that a problem if it's just a single word?
Yes. It is a SDL specific issue. But I guess we have to special case it in this case because we have to keep a namespace uppercase and the type name Pascal case.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that there's no name conflict there.
All right. Anything else?
And then the last thing is like the generic math naming. So in the bindings, when I have 2x2, the x is lowercase. And that was done for readability.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that the generic maths use uppercase x when you have like 2x2, 3x3.
I think that
and I'm wondering if we should be consistent on that.
I think that's to separate us from the numerics types.
Ah.
So that you can be using them side by side.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That is right. So in my screenshot, I was showing that we were using all three namespaces simultaneously, and that it was basically working nicely.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Are the matrix types not generic? Are they just built in matrix 3x3 always of float?
For the numerics types,
the built-in ones aren't
the
generic.
built-in ones, yeah, the numerics.
Correct.
But I mean the generic math ones, are those generic? For the matrices in particular, I know the vectors are all generic.
Yes.
So there shouldn't really be a naming collision, right? If they're generic.
When you do any like matrix 4x4 dot, your statics.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. It's the static methods, yeah.
Well, when you're addressing the static methods from like say a matrix 4x3 or 4x4, no, I see what you mean.
I guess you can do extension methods, right?
Yeah,
but it would just be on the .NET type.
But
yeah,
just weird.
Which we could do, honestly.
But there's like .create, whatever.
Yeah, again, it's.
I think it should have the same type name there.
Yeah. Yeah, for all of the creates, it should match the type that it's getting created. Well, I guess the difference I think would be is so if we lowercase these and then added these as
probably return or conflict on the return type. Like, you don't know if you're returning a
what we do is we do these as extension on numerics, and then they should have a type argument for them because it should be what type are you returning? You know, is it a matrix 4x3?
No, but the
double complex. Wouldn't that work?
That they do, but it's implicit. But that's not where the conflict arises.
Okay. Is there
the conflict arises in which matrix x 2x2 type are you even talking about?
Yeah, is it not the case that like when invoking, say, generic static methods, you need to specify the type in some way, like the.
Yeah, but usually, like, you can specify it through type inference, which is what a lot of these are for.
I see.
So, like, for example, like if for the system immutable types, like if you want to just like list your variables out in source or your expressions out that you're initializing the list with and use type inference, then basically the generic argument is on the function.
Yeah.
So it'll be like, you know, immutable list dot create of t paren, but that of t can be implicit.
And our floats.
You know, this is a bit pie in the sky. I'm totally spitballing here, but we have at least one scenario where we are going to have an interface that is like guaranteed to be behind all of our boxes, right? And so that in itself is like a naming collision proof source of these extension methods and properties. Is there something similar that unites the general generic math or matrices?
to solve the naming
We're-
conflict here?
This is a
Yeah, meaning,
naming conflict with
depending on-
numerics, which we don't have control.
Yeah, I don't think this is solved by interfaces. Going
I'm
back to the
You're saying something like iMatrix dot create, and then we
Not
can use
iMatrix
lowercase x.
not iMatrix dot create, because that sucks for everybody involved. I just mean more for the how many of these methods cannot be constructors or straight up just extension methods.
Constructors would get very weird because of the
so
left
most
and
of
right
these
hands.
take like 2 or 3 arguments and create a matrix of like size 4x3 or 4x4. So they're related in where they go on the matrix. So it's like a semantic way of like providing a lot fewer arguments than you would normally need. So if it's an extension method, you either need to have a matrix that already exists, or you're going to be
what you're getting at.
Yeah, providing the arguments in a specific place that you already kind of are trying to imply with the semantics of the name here.
Yeah. Matrix Factory, anyone? Just kidding. Go on.
So going back to the numeric matrix, if we try to find these the silk methods as extension methods on the numeric matrix type, that would work, but we lose the implicit generic argument.
Well,
I'd say we don't do that.
Could we? So the thing is on most of these, won't there be an argument that would be of the type that we care about?
Yeah, absolutely. Every single one of these will have an implicit
and
type.
Then the one
and you can be explicit about it. For example, if you have like 3 different types for your arguments and you can't pick. Yeah.
And I think the only one that this would cause a major problem with is float, because all of the originals are going to be float. But in that case, don't we want to suggest them to use the numeric type anyways?
We can build. We don't have a way, or like I didn't find a way to build an implicit conversion from the system numerics type into our types that made sense for every of T.
Well, no, there wouldn't be for every of T. I'm just more like.
No, you're saying of float. I get that, but then what I'm saying is there's friction if it chooses that type, because then when they want to use an API of ours that uses matrix, and they happen to have picked the system numerics matrix, then they have to put in a cast.
I think more often than so. The thing is the system numerics versions
you're saying
are going to be faster.
APIs already exist.
And so honestly, in the cases where someone has a choice between our types and the system numerics types, more often than not, they should be choosing the numerics types. The numerics types have hard-coded paths in them that work better than we can do. So in those cases, we should be pointing them towards the original matrix 4x4.
Okay. Then that's an interesting point. Will it work? Then becomes the question of, will the C# compiler tell them that it's an ambiguous reference?
So what?
We could test that probably right now.
So I think it would. It'd be ambiguous between the two. Is there a way?
Well, I mean, it might always be able to prefer the non-generic one.
Yeah, and if we can prefer the non-generic one, I think that would be the case. That
with floats,
we would want, and then if we can just make sure that all of these exist, even if they don't exist today on the numerics version, we add it to the numerics version so that it essentially functions.
There's one other thing that's a little bit strange there, and that is if they don't have a static type for float. Let's say they have like they're writing a generic type. It's going to use ours, but that also means it's going to have a different API, right? It's going to have.
Yeah.
It would a little bit, because there are things that we don't. How much do we not have that the numerics type has? Because
some of our names are slightly more
different.
generic. That's basically it.
Like, but again, it's in that case of they should probably be preferring that numerics, if that's the case that they're in. If you are using floats, you should be
They can easily do that with the lowercase x, though. That's very controllable.
I'm just like
100%. It might be that's the best. The uppercase is the best solve.
Is the best, but I do agree that for like visibility and readability, lowercase reads better. And it's could we do that?
I totally agree with that too.
Because what is the big thing that we lose?
I think we're in a worse situation if we do that, even though it does kind of solve a problem of ushering people toward those types. I don't think that's the right way to solve that problem. It's a weird type of friction that we're admitting is kind of sort of solving something, but doesn't really solve something. I'd prefer that if we want to try to hit the lowercase x, then what we can do is like tell people, okay, at the top, use a using or whatever. But so we could, I'm just saying, what we could do is we could just straight up admit a namespace conflict and then have people use something to disambiguate, including usings, which C# just straight allows.
I do like your example,
and that'd be a better solution
where you're using them next to each other, because there are times where I think you'd want to use them next to each other, mainly I'm doing something where I'm handling doubles, and so I'm initially starting in doubles, but maybe eventually I need to be able to cast out to the numerics version. I don't think there's ever a case where you should be working in a float and using ours.
That's fine. And so we can say, hey, if you have a static type of float, we can emit a warning or an info and say, hey, prefer this. But if you write generic code, I do want ours to be backed.
Yeah.
And if they prefer, like if they don't have,
and then it would be.
It seems to work. I just tested the change
extension method with create, and then it does well, and it does get a little angry about it, but I do agree that there is some ambiguity if you are using a generic, like if you're supplying this by generic and you're using a float, you will end up with one of our types, even in the case where we normally would say don't be one of our type. But is that enough of a
what happens if you use XNO? Can you just type var for all those? I assume it works. Yeah,
var is the same. I just expanded it.
Okay, great.
Which I guess is the thing that you're concerned about is that our API does not match their API, because we have different names for certain things. Could we create extension methods on the original numerics versions that name match ours? So that you technically have access to all the same naming, and even if it just then calls the numerics version of that function, they don't have to context switch.
So you're saying like,
just take float. Yeah, I don't see any reason I couldn't generate that code very easily.
That sounds awesome. I didn't want to say it because it sounded like a lot of work.
I mean,
the key thing is like we want a really good API.
Thing.
Yeah.
Like part of my naming things and like Vulkan and the generator stuff is just to make sure we have a good API that's consistent.
Yeah, I think DMP9 in the chat has a point though, is that at the point where we're doing this, another reason why I didn't want to mention it is like that's like a fundamental proposal change. If we're going to be then name matching. Um, I'm not fully privy to the entire proposal process, but it sounds like a major shift.
It would be an update
is.
to this proposal, to name match. It's not a
I
completely
think-
new proposal. It's just, is that even a route that we want to go down? Because yes, it does have some caveats. And then yes, system numerics do intend to add their own generic math eventually. Though I think when that,
At which point we could retire ours.
I think that
match.
we
I mean,
we would
that
want
almost
to
sounds like
retire
free.
and move into extension methods only, where we add the extension methods for the things that we want. Potentially, again, adding extensions that they technically have the function for, but our names varied. Again, is this an update?
Sorry,
But
I'm just reacting to the.
there is a whole,
the
like,
chat.
this is going to get updated anyways. We've already discussed several changes to this math proposal to begin with. If this was a change in naming to this, and then appending that we're also doing that, that's not a fully separate generic math proposal. It's just, it's a change to this proposal. We've done changes to
I do agree,
before.
but this API conflict is, it is worth kind of voting on. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I think it's worth voting on.
Also,
I don't think we should.
I don't implicitly agree with it, is what I'm saying.
That's fine.
Yeah, and I think that it's also worth like kind of giving you a bit of a larger voice, because not for nothing,
You're the one doing it.
handling the math here is rough. It's a massive undertaking, and it's it underpins a lot.
Yeah. And if you are against this, I would, despite everything that I have said and sit here and vote for, like with my voice, I will defer to your opinion, because at the end of the day,
Ditto.
If someone doesn't like this, they don't have to use it, so long as it is convenient enough to work around. And a lot of the stuff we've talked today would make this convenient if we don't need it. And I'm super on board with where our vectors are,
Yeah.
and stuff. So if you don't want to change the name, don't.
Yeah, I'd say that too, because the only reason I brought this up is because the generator now uses lowercase x, and I just wanted it to be consistent with the generic math name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And another thing worth mentioning too is that once Silk 3 is out, I know at least Percy's intention was to, Silk 4 would basically be a year away. We'd more or less be following .NET versions, in which case, like, yeah, we preferred not to be breaking things, but major versions happen. Switching the way that some types are referenced isn't the end of the world for most code bases.
No. Well, and
yeah, it's usually like conceptual changes.
It's very easy if we're making literally the change from an uppercase X to a lowercase x in a future version, because we have that is a very funny message in the team chat. Because it's definitely November 2025 Silk 4. We're definitely having that. Yeah, like, you can easily like alias if we choose to change this at a later date. If we just don't want to do that and you don't want to deal with doing that, I'm fine with it being uppercased. It's uppercased in Silk today.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best argument. Is source compatibility is quite high still.
It's not going to be.
If you
we are going to be breaking all of the Windows stuff.
I'm trying.
I appreciate you trying to stay the math the same. And again, I think the math library in general will change a lot in the event that we get generic versions of all of these from system.numerics. So I don't know if it's worth spending a whole bunch of time being like, well, it should be this way or that way, if in a couple years' time this doesn't look like it, doesn't even look remotely the same anymore. And matching what people are used to seeing. And it is one of the things that is, like, having the uppercase for these is actually, as much as I talk about it, it's nice to have the lowercase for visibility. It is also really nice having them uppercased, because I don't know how many times I've accidentally grabbed a Silk type that is identical to another type name that I'm using.
I was about to say that.
Yeah.
Actually, not quite that. What I was about to say is that I think it would make sense to have a very clear delineation of when we do move to, using the generic .NET type, when they finally implement all of this, and having that delineation being kind of shared amongst all of our consumers, being intentional about that, because it makes it basically, I don't want to pretend to be the type that will eventually show up and then force people to have bugs because of the subtle API changes that were introduced, because they happen to be referring to the type that showed up. And I don't want to basically force the hand of the framework team with our decisions here. I mean, they might be great, they might be less than great, and I want it to be a shining example, but I don't want it to be forcing them into a corner.
Okay. And I actually, that makes a lot of sense of when we do change it. I say when, at a time that change happens where we move over, having, because I don't think we'll like just delete the math immediately. It would be good if we are not introducing bugs into people's code because all of a sudden the backing type has changed, and that comes with some weird
That's
implicit.
Exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. I'm fully on board with let's leave it as is and not.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. There was one more bike shed topic that you wanted, Exonite?
That was it.
That was it.
Oh.
Okay, so
Wow.
just shy of 2 hours. Are we? Is there anything else that anyone wants? Do we want to go for 3?
I got no debate topics.
Okay. Then I think this is helpful for me to see where everything's at, and hopefully, Xanite, you're in the same spot of now we both have a better overall visibility. Hope that it was helpful for you, Otakon, with the math stuff. Sounds like math and input both aren't super far away, which is exciting.
Yeah, especially if I have permission to just kind of delete the feature of the complicated constructors for now, except for
just delete
adding
them.
your specific use case.
I'm
Yeah.
good, and then have an extra function that lets me convert my 2D affine up. Because that's the only use case I have, is I doing stuff, and for simplicity, I use a 2D affine because I don't want people making 3D rotations on my.
So
2D
all
objects.
of the one last little question: all of the functions that exist today, are they left-handed or right-handed? I could probably figure it out, but
I could tell you if I can look at it. Give me 1 second.
Left.
I don't want to make. Okay. I could go figure the algebra out. I just wanted to make sure.
I don't even know. Like,
we're on the same page there.
I just need to see really fast because I know what the math is offhand right now because I was just in there, just doing some math stuff. So that's why I'm like, I can just, because I know it's
polling the audience. Given your boundless experience in this realm, what is left hand generally considered the default? That's kind of the way I work.
Depends on what you're doing. I think it's DirectX defaults to left hand.
Graphics API.
Yeah, I think OpenGL is right hand by default.
I think so.
Yeah.
This is
the Vulcan's upside down and also right-handed.
We gotta just agree. Everyone gotta hold hands on this one and just make a decision. But that's not mine.
The problem is because I've had this discussion at GDC. Where the hell are these functions defined? I am apparently unable to find where we have defined. Is it in 4x4? Oh, it's in 4x4. That's why.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I just need orthographic. Reciprocal. Which is that scalar near plane near minus r -1. I believe it is right-handed. Looking at this, because
sort of like defer to Chronos type shit.
Originally Silk was OpenGeo. Primary.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I believe these are right-handed because just this orthographic for right-handed. If you go from 0 to 1, it gives you a -1 as your M33. Because I just literally did this and was like, wait, that's the wrong thing that I wanted. Because technically DirectX has both. It's up to you. This was side tangent, unrelated. Why this is so divisive of a topic is it literally comes down to how, because it's the same with like why you consider Z up or Y up. It comes to where did you come from and how do you conceptualize the 3D space. Left hand is
so. The thing is on that one, there's a correct answer.
Yeah, there is.
Well, it's are you thinking
it's
of
not left?
Are you thinking of a piece of paper and coming out from the paper, and so architecturally, architects are where we get like right hand and Y, and Z being up. Whereas if you're thinking on a computer monitor, you've got X across, Y up.
Oh, Z is up.
Z going in. Then you're just a weirdo, or you use Unreal.
So lazy. It's so lazy. No, so I feel like early computer graphics being XY and then being like, oh, I'm just going to use Z to go into the monitor is so lazy because you should have instead conceptualized the actual problem and used, X as your primary axis of movement, Y as your secondary, and Z as your tertiary. Like humans. Anyway, sorry, I don't actually want to get into this rant.
No,
I'm very
it's
curious.
A whole
I don't know if this is the place, but I'd be totally down to be yapping in another channel after this. I don't know. I just want to learn.
We can stay in this channel. We don't have to leave. Though I think we can end the broadcast because I think all of the important stuff
sounds great.
Has been gotten to.
Funny things I do want to listen, but like I have to go.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah,
so we can broadcast this.
Yeah,
we can
That'll
just
be
broadcast
funny, but off topic.
Yeah. No, a really funny thing, which I will save into this broadcast, of the very funny thing that did get brought up because this was a funny topic that was getting pulled at GDC was there was someone who was like, why don't we just do it like P, Z, and W, and just throw everyone off, screw any conventions, and we're just making shit up as we go along. It make everyone upset.
Yo, honestly,
don't get me started on polynomials. A should be the constant term, and then you continue into the alphabet for higher powers. It'd be so much easier.
Is A not the constant term?
C is usually because C for constant.
A plus A squared plus B x AX squared plus BX plus C. I mean, it depends.
Yeah,
it really depends. A is a constant in that case.
I
guess I just don't understand. I want to understand.
I feel like we should care about pedagogy a little bit.
When it comes to math, bro, I'm with you. There's far too much divisiveness in the computing community with respect to like what the rest of the world considers to be basic geometric principles.
I think that we make it up as we go along, even because I come from actually a heavy math background, and even within math, there are some times where it doesn't agree. Some of the stuff that we're talking about, actually, it depends, because actually, if you're talking about
that makes sense.
Y being up, Y is usually up when you're talking about a trajectory equation. And whenever we talk about gravity, so a lot of your calculus, Y is the vertical axis. Again, do I think that it's important? No. Is it fun to debate? Yes. Yeah. It's absolutely fun to debate.
And there is a right answer, and it's my answer.
Exactly.
But that's aside from the point.
I think modeling each thing independently is fine. I think forcing everybody to use the same variable because it's been used in one model and it doesn't translate, that's particularly odd.
Yeah.
I think if you modeled each problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like my conceptual has always been Y being a vertical because I think of the screen, and then Z going into the screen because that is the tertiary axis that we added when we started 3D.
I might not have my matrix names or my transformations correct, but that's a certain space. What is it called? It's not screen space. It's like, let me go look up my list of spaces. But like world space doesn't have to be screen space, is my point.
Correct.
No, it doesn't.
Sometimes it's useful, but the scopes in which it is useful are more limiting.
Clip space, I think, is what you're thinking of. Which is your that is what we use for drawing to the screen is clip space, which is the 3D volume from which depends on what graphics API you're using, whether it's from 0 to 1 or -1 to 1. Another whole problem. Because OpenGL has to be interesting.
-1 to 1 is crazy.
Well, and the weird thing is DirectX is -1.
I mean, it goes into the extents problem again.
Yeah, like it's half extents, and yeah, it's a whole thing. We can't be consistent about anything, and because
I'm trying to find my camera code,
and I'm not sure I really trust OpenGL's view of the world.
It was agreed upon by multiple people.
I have a bunch of different spaces. I thought, there's normalized device
I have to go.
coordinates.
Okay.
Normalized device coordinates, screen space, those are different. There's clip space. Okay, so camera space, clip space, NDC space. So I think NDC is often called clip space, but I think the difference has to do with whether it's zero-centered or left-centered. Sorry, not left-centered, but like whether the top left is the origin or whether the center is the origin, right?
Yeah.
So I think normalized device coordinate space or whatever it is what I was talking about. But yeah, clip space is basically the same thing.
Yep. And that's weird because again, clip space depends on your API. Because with DirectX, clip space and normalized device space, I believe, are the same.
Okay.
That's why it's confusing because we can't agree. I wish I could.
I need a parameter.
Pull up the XKCD comic that is. It's someone like there are 14 competing standards. How can they do this?
Exactly.
I know what I'll do. I'll make a standard, an absolute standard, and there are 15 competing standards now. Because it is so often that's how programmers, how we think. If we're like, I've got the right solution, so I'll tell the world, and people don't change. So
yeah, I mean, it's just a strange domain to operate in, where like a machine at the end of the day has the final say as to what works best, even if you want to listen to the people who know best.
So imagine like I had a game engine that was like doing a side scroller with some depth. I would 100% admit that like using X and Y as your screen coordinates and your world coordinates as forward and up makes total sense.
Which
But
I'm
why
gonna
would that
be really funny
always
and
forever be
clear?
the?
That is exactly what I'm doing currently. So, which is funny.
I
So it
think
models
makes
very
sense to
well.
eventually
Yeah.
clamp it. I think it makes sense to clamp spatial like constraints and say this is the way it works, and then adapt otherwise. It's just kind of like shrinking the problem space like literally by like several dimensions in a way. But
then it makes the APIs make assumptions that make it very difficult for people who want to make a game like
Kerbal Space Program,
Outer Wilds, yeah, or
yeah, and I do think that it's
100%.
like the fact that Z is defined your near and far clipping planes, that like all of them define like that's how you define your clipping planes. Like really, it doesn't matter. It could be Y.
I think it's okay for that to like be your final screen space. Like that's totally fine.
And that's just
but
or you do what Epic just recently did this change. They no longer, I don't know if it's in the main engine, but it's in the Fortnite version of the engine. They no longer use XYZ. They use up, left, and forward. Up, right, and forward.
That's kind of based, to be honest.
So they just do it based on direction because it internally
that's left-handed then, right?
It is still internally it's still Z up and X and Y are your lateral planes. That's technically still they just when you go and look at it in engine, it's called, and there are aliases in the types now.
Okay, I think that's great.
I think it's funny.
But when it gets encoded in, like when you have to have your models imported or whatever, what I think the engine should do is give you the option, right? And then considering we're letting people like compile the shaders on their PCs anyway, just put one extra step in, and the engine can be agnostic about it.
Honestly,
I think
changing
everybody wins in that case with a default.
It's almost negligible the amount of time that it takes to swap your Z and your Y. Like, it is super negligible.
Yes.
So yeah,
the problem comes when you have like I've tried that, and you end up like with triangles that are backwards, and the UV coordinates get weird. Yeah, exactly.
Do what I do and define your winding order as it's being created, because you can choose. It only comes 3D models. It gets harder because you have to know which actual way is facing.
Yeah.
But for all 2D stuff, you can always make it face the camera by just defining the camera. Like, it's a little calculation to be like, this is the correct direction. Nope, switch it. But yeah, it's a solvable problem though. Is you could check to make sure whether after you've changed those two, whether you've inverted your winding order or not. And that's all that
so maybe that's also on just like the model format, not for nothing. Like
this is actually kind of the reason I chose Silk.net over kind of anything in the C# space. There was what was it? Dried? Is that right? No.
Oh, Veldred?
Veldred.
What are you talking
about? I'm not sure.
There's Vortis.
No.
And then there's TerraFX.
I'm not talking about back-end APIs. I'm talking about like actual game engines.
Stride? Stride? Is that what we're talking about? Okay, Stride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I wanted to, do some basic, game engine-y stuff, and I wanted to not solve all the problems myself. But I loaded up Stride, and they were Y up, and I was like, nope. And so and they're the only like mature
about Y up.
They're the only mature one, and I could not figure out how to
I
to
honestly
change
think
it or
that
anything
should
like that. And I
be
was like, screw this, I'm gonna go
100%.
build my own.
It should be a project by project basis. You should be able to define what you want as up, because it doesn't
That
matter.
is basically what I'm saying. Yeah,
It is so
that is
easy
exactly
to
what I'm saying.
change because it's literally, even if
100
all of your math
100% my point.
says that that y is supposed to be up, here's what you do: you rotate. That's it.
In the
You
simplest
apply
possible way.
you apply a rotation to the base camera that you're using, and now, hey, Z is up. It's a 90-degree rotation. You
Yeah.
don't have to do any more than that.
The math is certainly easily solvable, and you can even do it in a performant way.
Yeah.
But my point, my 100% my point was that we should be solving the problem in the way that the problem is easiest modeled, and then making our software, making our computers do what we want, rather than having to, as humans, spend time being a calculator of any kind.
Oh yeah. I think it should be the software that does that rotation for you. Again, I'm very much.
100%.
That feels like a simple Stride PR, not for nothing. But I'm a big Stride fan, not because I've ever even used it, but because they're the only ones, and I'm rooting for them. Like, they basically invented slang before slang existed, and they have these like just really awesome. There's just awesome work in there. It's not cross-platform compatible enough for me personally, which is why I don't use it. But I feel like they could potentially welcome something like that. Like, it's so trivial. That being said, Silk Team stays Silk Team. You're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I know it. Yeah, it wouldn't be hard. But I mean, I was, I just looking for a way to do it myself at that point. So
yeah,
I know I picked
because it would be
this
cool not to solve every problem, but here we are.
I've been long in the camp of solving all of my problems. Mainly originally just because I wanted to know how you solved them. And I moved over to Silk when Sharp DX bit the dust. And that's not the first time.
Many a story.
Yeah.
That's basically why I was here too, for the
And I'm very particular on I would, and it's what I'm trying to build is I want a game engine that makes no hard claims about anything. Anything can be changed. Like, there's a default claim of how something should work, but you should be able to rip that out easily. And I've not seen a game engine that lets you do that. There are a certain set of
all I do is fight
how things work.
That's kind of like
too hard.
The philosophy of enterprise software. Honestly, it's like you should be able to grab something and use its contract and swap it out if something doesn't work.
Yeah.
Should.
And it's surprising that doesn't exist. Like, there's great software for that in all kinds of spaces, but surprisingly not game development. Weirdly,
like at all.
Which is weird because
I mean, you know what? Part of it,
I think there was Unity is kind of its own microcosm of that, though.
Bro, I've worked with Unity every day for my job. Personally, I spend more time de-abstracting its abstractions and then re-implementing them than I would ever care to do in any engine. That's why, I mean, aside from, like the source code and the licensing and the drama, like that's kind of my big reason for having the stink face about Unity. It's kludgy in a lot of ways, and then working around their abstractions is like, I don't know, why am I using a game engine in the first place at that point? That's just my experience, though. I'm actually not a game developer in Unity. I do like experiential, real world shit. Not going to get down that rabbit hole. So I'm not trying to step on whatever point you were trying to make. Don't mistake me. That being said, I just have a lot of bottled up rage about Unity that I don't get to voice very often.
I guess my point there was that it seems to make an attempt to do it. You were saying it doesn't exist at all, and I'm just saying it seems to be an attempt to sort of commoditize various components.
It's
I haven't
trying,
been.
but there are
They're
still
trying.
a lot of base assumptions that Unity has that you can't really get into unless you have access to the source code of
Absolutely.
Unity.
Yeah.
And
as far as like the rendering pipeline goes, like recently they are doing a much better job of
yeah,
making
the
sure that
new
you can render whatever the hell you want. But with that comes a new set of abstractions that they are providing you.
mhm.
And then if you don't like those, I mean, that's that. And fine, we're just rendering. It doesn't have to be like literally anything on the planet that I want. But there's like even just are you going ECS? Are you using their traditional component system? And if you're
Right.
using your traditional component system, you might as well just like shoot yourself in the foot about performance or even object lifetimes. Like forget about it.
Has the tooling on ECS gotten
There's a
any
lot of
better?
struggles.
Because last
I
I
don't
looked
know.
at
I
it,
haven't bothered to be honest. I tend to just forego it.
yeah, it's like because that was the big thing that turned me off of Unity's ECS implementation is the tool, like being able to inspect is garbage.
It's
Like,
strange.
yeah,
It's very strange. The inspection and the burst compilation. I mean, that's like really, I think, the big kicker for Unity, which I'm hoping they just eventually decide to dissolve the burst compiler in its entirety because with that as the job system and like why do I need this random like strange procedural struct thing going on just to spawn a thread doing very simple operations, and those simple operations now are totally hidden from me.
mhm.
um yeah, I don't know, there's a lot of weird shit, and that being said, their journey towards modularization is admirable considering their starting point. um their starting point was rough. This custom mono runtime and everything they're running, like I do not envy their engineers. I think it's just a product of like ages past. They made a decision to not go the open source route with their runtime, and they're paying the price, and so are their users in a lot of ways. But
Yeah,
I don't know. They just have their work cut out for them.
yeah, I know because back when I first started looking, because I do actually use ECS as kind of the core. It was literally a conversation I had with a developer at the time, and I was like, "Why don't you use that as like?" Because it was for when Overwatch had come out. That was actually when I started looking really heavily into ECS and how it worked. I was talking with one of the Blizzard guys, and I'm like, "Why don't you use that for more than just like your top level game objects?" Because that gives you all of that like
Mhm.
modularity built in. And they're like, they were very vague with like some rendering shortcut stuff. And I'm like, okay.
Mhm.
And to what
All
I've
right.
found so far, I'm like, as long as you're very careful, you can build out, because it's no different than like an MVC format.
I feel like they're the worst people to talk about rendering shortcuts being a good thing, by the way, because I feel like they have had. We're talking Overwatch, right?
Yeah, but this was just
Yeah.
on release, like within a year of release, 2017.
Okay, the thing is they had so many like bugs with like the way weapons and things like that interacted with the 3D geometry of the world that like screwed people over in like competitive matches and things like that. If I'm not forgetting, and they like as they made balance changes and things like this, they made tweaks, but then it would interact in very strange ways graphically with the world and all kinds of things. I feel like maybe they should have gone for something that solved the problem very cleanly rather than relying on graphic hacks.
Yeah, like, and I assumed by that, like, they were meaning like optimization type things where they needed stuff to live close together in ways that, at least the way they conceptualized ECS, didn't work.
Okay, maybe one hopes.
Yeah, that is the
Another
hope.
thing too is like ECS. The further down you go, as far as my understanding of ECS goes, the further you commit to ECS, the more you just kind of end up managing your own memory. For them, that's probably fine. It's a native engine. For like C#, it becomes a little less ergonomic for the expectations, right? At the end of the day, we got arrays of components. We work it out. You figure out the memory layout for your components. But it does add quite a lot of cognitive overhead to the low level, and possibly, depending on how far your ECS goes, to the upper level.
Yeah, the way that I do it, like there is some memory managing that I do, mainly so I can actually more has to do with my interrupt stuff that I do rather than the actual ECS core, because I just treat them as arrays of objects. Like I don't have to really concern myself. My big thing, which very much affects how I work with it, is I don't like I don't think I'm what you would consider pure ECS, because do a lot of stuff purely on the components themselves. I don't actually use entities that
Yeah.
often.
That's kind of the kicker too, right?
Yeah, but
Like
it lets me do
an
a lot
optimal
of stuff.
ECS is kind of not the ECS that's bespoke. Like the
Yeah.
optimal ECS is kind of like having separate arrays of each component and then
Yep.
like crazy indexing in order to keep like your cache coherent.
Mm. And yeah, and there's
Which is
I have
a
a
tall
whole
order for game
system,
engines.
that I built to read and define how I look things up. So far, it works pretty good. Like I don't have a full game running in it, so I can't say that I'm not killing myself in one place that I just haven't used yet. But I'm very careful about keeping everything kind of coherent, and since you're always working with the same types of objects, you're getting them in cache after that first one.
It seems like these would be the kinds of things where it would easily translate to doing parallel computation, and therefore,
That's exactly why I do it.
pushing.
I push
some of it
so much parallelism, and the only real thing that I have to do is I have to ensure, which is a whole nother thing that I had to do, which is making sure that your parallel threads aren't accessing the same components at the same time. Which I actually keep two sets of, not full two sets, but I have read versions of the components that are basically entirely used on the render side, because
immutable for one frame or whatever.
Yeah. And then I have the current up-to-date version that exist on like the more logic threads. And they have a whole locking system, so you can check them in and out individually, in a very simple lock way. Like I'm just literally setting up, when you lock something out, you pass in an object, and as long as you then when you go to actually make edits to it, you have to use that object, and it just checks whether an object reference is the same. Simple, quick reference.
Like a compare exchange?
Yeah. That works pretty well. And I've got the whole system in there to like index them and then also give them a name so that I can actually find things that I want. Because that's a whole thing. Though I did get to learn through that, because I never realized this, because I'm like, it's done with hashing and using a hash table, and I was using originally strings. I had moved over, because of some stuff that I was doing, to actually having like big, manually handled string caches. And then after that, realized that there was some problems, because apparently on different runs of your application, strings don't have stable hashes.
That's awesome.
Yep, they will give you different hash codes each time you run the application.
Yeah, because that's the thing too about like I think that holds true for all objects, doesn't it? Because don't objects,
well, no, I mean, you can...
the default implementation at least like include like the lower level, like, oh, this is the memory address, this is the...
Probably for structs that don't define their own get hash code, but if you define, obviously,
I think records will, by default, use... I think that one gets defined for you based on the members.
Yeah, it does. And those members, if they're managed types, you're in the same boat. And a record is a managed type.
I do a lot with...
Well, I guess a record would ignore it, but...
I use a lot of record structs that are specifically unmanaged, so that I can store them so that I can save them off to disk and then pull them back in.
That's based. That's awesome. I don't know
have
why.
consistent hashing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So you're saying that the get hash code on those. Well, what happens if you do have a string then? Like, I guess you just don't.
So yeah, I don't. Yeah. I have my own string storage and then ICE that you can pull up, which is just literally a big block of text with a little table at the beginning so that it knows where to index, which to me also is really great because localization, I just load a different one. That's all that I have to do. So that's all stored in binary. And then when I need a string, I have a way to look up if you want to go look up, but it has what text. It gives an ID, and the ID is what text heap are you in, so that you can have multiple text heaps for different things, and then
that's cool.
The ID in that text heap of the string, and that's what you use, and that generates a stable hash because it's just it combines the two
integers or whatever.
Yeah, the two integers. Yeah, so that
I do have
is a whole thing building and figuring it out.
That sounds like a project that was honestly well worth it.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, like, this is just like, I was kind of dealing with this the other day. Like, when you take the hash code of like a read-only span, for example, is that also like non-deterministic?
I think that would be non-deterministic because I think the read-only span technically is a pointer.
It's to an array.
But it's specifically a pointer with a length variable is what it actually stores, because you can do it to native arrays because I use it a lot. So I would assume that it's your managed pointer, which is going to change each time you run and is not going to be consistent.
Well, not only that, I'm wondering what happens if the objects move around and the pointer changes, even though it's pinned. I know that span generally is working on like stack stuff, but like
not always.
But what happens if you think? Yeah, I mean, you pull it back. That's weird. So basically, the span, those hashes are only as good are only good as long as that stack frame, basically.
I would assume so. I don't know. I've not tested that.
Or maybe,
but
maybe
to
not.
Me, it feels like if I was like in the framework, I know there's a lot of exceptions for various special types. That's the specific one I would make for a read-only span of char, whatever the characters. I'd be like, okay, let's make this a nice little stable hash just based on the contents, right? That's kind of the utility of span, is that it gets rid of most low-level things you need to care about. You just have the contents of whatever.
It's interesting. I don't know what it does. I do have to go, though, unfortunately.
Okay.
That's all good. We've been yapping.
I should probably end this broadcast that has just been us going on a random tangent, but Xanite wanted to hear it, so I'm like, well, just leave it at